mind in that partnership as we work together to protect our natural environment. And then there is going to be a lot of opportunity for community discussion. So as you're speaking into the mic, please make sure to speak slowly and loudly so Ruben can hear you and interpret for those who need it. And then some expectations and agreements. This is a safe place, so we want to make sure everybody feels safe speaking their truth, as well as a community member. But also, there might be different points of views. Please make sure to respect one another and don't talk over each other. So there is plenty of time to go person by person. So please make sure to give each other some time to fully say what they need to say, as well as please make sure to speak your truth. That's what we're here for. That's what the study is needing. We need a community input on what to lead here in the community. And if you need a break, if you need a bathroom, grab some more food, please feel to do that during the presentation. So before I get into the overview and the program, I'm going to pass it on to our partners so they can introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Carrie Gazas. I'm from Central Washington University, and I have 3 students here with me. Here's one.
I'm Abe Nelson. I'm the grad student working on this project here, so I'm excited to be here, excited to be working with you guys.
Hello, I'm Risa Peña, and I'm the undergrad just here helping. I'm Adriana Pacheco Garcia. I'm also one of Carrie's grad students. I'm also working with water. And yeah, I'm also here helping. I'm working on Nosting.
Hi, everybody. I'm G. Mendoza from the Friends of Toppenish Creek. Uh, Friends of Toppenish Creek is an environmental organization. We advocate for clean air and clean water. And we've been aware of the problems in Mabton for a long time. So we came across this great opportunity, this grant from the EPA that will fund research in the Mabton area, that will map the groundwater and test the groundwater and hopefully give us a better idea of what's causing those problems. So we are just thrilled to be here. And I want to say one more thing. Every time I come to a small town like Mapton, I'm reminded of the small town that I grew up in. And when I see parents coming to a meeting like this, I think of my own parents who worked so hard to put me and my sisters through college. And I hope that I'm paying them back a little bit by doing something good here. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you. I'd like to introduce my partner, Ron Sell here. Ron is the science officer for Friends of Toppenish Creek. Ron actually did some of the groundbreaking groundwater research in the Yakima Valley back in 2002. So I'll let him talk a little bit about what he knows about groundwater.
Well, we'll get into that when we start showing the slides. Yeah, I've been at this for 25 years now, and I'm still learning. I'm learning from people in Central Washington University, and it's a big problem. And we just cracked the surface back in 2000 when we first identified all the nitrate pollution in wells here. And since that time, things have not improved a lot. In fact, they've gotten worse. And I'm so glad you came today because we need help finding solutions. We need people to get interested in it because it's been a long haul and not much has changed. It's the same as it was 20 years ago, if not worse. So thank you for coming today.
I'm gonna go over the program and what we're gonna discuss today. So G Mendoza is gonna talk a little bit about the grant that she received for this study and why it's important for this community. We're gonna go over the history of the water here in Mapton and how that has led to this point. And then we're gonna pass it off to Central to talk about the water systems and some of the priorities you want to see as a community for this study. And then we're gonna end it with some questions that you might have. But throughout this presentation, there's going to be opportunity for you as a community to talk and bring up your experiences and your points. So we strongly encourage you all to speak up. Thank you.
So this has been kind of an adventure for us. We applied for this grant a couple of years ago uh, during the Biden administration when grant money was flowing very all over the place. And we were very excited about the opportunity to get money for studying the Mapton area. we were notified that we had received the grant. Then with the new presidency, our grant was denied. And then after a while, they said, "Yeah, you can have the money." They said you can do a study for a year and a half. Then they said, "No, you can only do the study for a year." So at this point in time, this study will begin right now, and it will run until November of this year. It's kind of compressed. It's not exactly what we wanted, but we're going to get the best information we can. Central Washington cannot test for everything that we want tested here. Okay, thank you. So this is where it gets difficult. You know, you live in the community, you know what the problems are. You want to know what are the tests that can address the problems with your water. They have a whole menu of tests that they can do, but they can't do them all. So this is a formative meeting. This is supposed to lay the groundwork for the plan going forward up until November of this year. Today we're supposed to start a plan to decide where people are going to test, what they're going to test for, and what we hope to achieve. Good enough?
I've been collecting data on water pollution in the valley for 25 years now, and there's been a number of tests, and nobody bothered to put all the data together. I'm trying to do that now. There have been 7 different governmental tests or various organizations have tested the groundwater, and it kind of all the data got scattered into different databases, and no one's tried to put it together. Well, I'm working on that now. This is a graph that shows the polluted wells in Mabton. The height of the column, all these wells are over 10 parts per million, which is the drinking water standard. But the height of the column indicates how much over the 10 part per million. Some of these wells are.
Ron, can you hold the mic a little closer?
Yeah, okay.
thank
Some
you.
of these wells are 20 plus parts per million nitrate. Now, again, all these people that have wells contaminated like this can't drink their well water. So they have to be supplied with bottled water or with reverse osmosis water purification systems. So it's expensive for the taxpayer and for other organizations that are participating in this. And it's, if you look at, not all the wells, of course, in Mabton have been tested. Some of them have, we need to test. But the ones that have tested, about 30% are over the drinking water standard. And it's just not Mabton, no. Let's go to the next slide. This slide shows the pollution in the valley in general. Mabton's down here, but you can see all the way up to Zilla, there's polluted wells. This shows results of 364 wells that are polluted in the valley in the different cities. And some of these wells are way out of scale. There's a well, the big tall columns there are over 80 parts per million in nitrate. And you can see that it's really widespread. If you live between Zilla or even actually between Buena and Grandview, you should have your well tested. Those are the areas where it's the worst. And we're really willing to help you do that. The Clean Drinking Water Project will do it for nothing, and they'll provide you with a solution, a clean bottled water or a reverse osmosis system. It's all good, it's all free, but we need to have people come forward and test and have their wells tested. We don't want people drinking water that is a potential carcinogen, for one thing, and also it affects people with immune system deficiencies. So I'm hoping that today we'll get some of you people interested in signing up, and we will see that you're well taken care of. Okay.
Thank you, Ron and Jean. I also want to mention there is cards on your table, so please feel to use those. Write questions, comments, suggestions. Those will be taken to Central to use for the study. So please feel free to write anything on those notes. So I will then pass it off to Dr. Geises? Yes. Mhm.
So there's, if you're Spanish speaking, there are copies of the presentation with the words all in Spanish for you. There's a lot of them out in the back. So I'm from Central Washington University. I have been studying groundwater for a long time, over 20 years. And I've done a lot of groundwater studies in the basin, largely lately related to groundwater storage. I'm involved in the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan groundwater storage subcommittee. And I got involved in this project because Jean approached me and said, I think we need a study, a scientific study in the Mabton area. It's kind of on the fringe of an area that's been studied more. We know there's a problem. We need some science to help us come up with a plan forward in terms of groundwater management. So I don't know your community at all. I'm happy to be here. I'm honored to be here among you, but I don't know anything much about your community. What your experience is in terms of the water you're drinking, where you go and visit the water on the surface, and so and what your priorities are. And this is kind of new to me, but our plan is to do a study and to incorporate your opinions and your experiences and your thoughts into our study. So we've already introduced, but Abe here, he's the graduate student who's going to work on that. This is going to be part of his master's thesis. Adriana in the back is helping us out, as well as Brisa. So the way I have this organized, I'm going to basically be asking you questions. And if there's questions I forget to ask that I should ask, please speak up. Feel free to really speak up at any time. But I've got some informational stuff about just groundwater basics. And then, groundwater quality, groundwater quantity, interspersed with questions for you guys to kind of let us know that things that we think we need to know. So to start out, I just want to kind of get a little idea of your experience in terms of drinking water, where you get your water, and where you go on the surface to visit the water. So here we go. First set of questions. Where do you get your water? And where does it? Sometimes people don't know where their water comes from. They just know it comes out of their faucet. I find that a lot with the students. So where does it come from naturally? Where is it from? And do you have any concerns about your water? If so, why? Do you use bottled water for drinking? If so, why? And do a lot of people in the community do that?
Yes. A lot of people in the community drink bottled water. The reason for that is because of the smell, the rotten egg smell. This has been going on for years. I've been here all my life, 68 years, and this has been going on for at least the past 30, 40 years. And it's getting worse. It's getting to the point to where a lot of residents here have complained that they don't even like taking showers in it just because of the smell of it. And it's not every day, but it's usually during late spring to early fall. And I tend to think that the reason for that is because of the consumption of water that's used throughout that time. The more water that's used, the worse it smells. Why, I don't know.
Huh.
And that's what I'm trying to find out.
And that's city water then?
That's city water. That's coming out of aquifers.
And how many people in here, maybe we can just do a show of hands. How many people are on city water in this room? And then the rest of you are on wells, is that right? So what was it, like 30% city in there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so and do all the city people kind of have that experience with the smell?
Yeah. And the particles that are in the water, if you let it sit for a while, you can see all that little dust or whatever in it. Yeah.
Nasty. Is that in every household or
It's in my household.
what about others? How? Oh, there's a.
It depends what well the water is being pumped from. So there's several wells here mapped in, and there's some of us that do get some of that, and there's some of us that don't get that. So there's it just depends where in the city that you live uh, that you get that drinking water from. So not everybody gets the that same water, but there's a big chunk that does.
Okay. I'd like to hear something from the well owners out there. How is the well water? Unlike I think surface water reservoirs, the groundwater reservoirs are complicated in that there might be one spot where you can get water, and then you go right next door, and for some reason you can't get water at the same depth, and it's because there's some complexity. Here's an example. This is it's called the Ellensburg Formation. This is the sequence of rocks that you might find if you dig down in the valley here, or in Ellensburg, or in Yakima. Any of these valleys has rocks that look like that, and you can see that it's complicated. It's not all the same rock, and there might be, especially when there's like a clay layer, then that might not let the water go through. Because of that, there's kind of two classifications, I guess, of aquifers. There's the unconfined aquifer, that's the one that's highest up. And it is usually connected to the streams and the lakes. So if you dig down, and it's the first water you hit, and it has nothing holding it down. But then if you go deeper, you'll pass through a place where the water can't get through, and the aquifers below that are called confined aquifers. So you guys, the basalts, the black rocks that are all around in the hills, a lot of the wells go into those, and I think some of the city wells go into those. Those are confined aquifers. The thing about the confined aquifers, they tend to be cleaner. They don't have pollution from the surface as much, but they also aren't getting replenished as much. So they're the ones that you're more likely to take too much water out of. And the water tends to be under pressure. Sometimes it can rise all the way to the surface. My well is in the basalt in a confined aquifer. So I sense that really we're here to talk about groundwater quality, but I want to also talk a little bit about groundwater quantity today. We'll start with quality. The difference being quality is how good is your water. It's things that you're talking about, like how does it smell? Is it above the drinking water limit, right? And then quantity is just making sure you have enough. A lot of what I've dealt with lately in my studies has been to do with quantity, trying to figure out how to really put water back into the aquifers so that we have enough for agriculture and for the fish in the streams and everything. So it's part of the Yakima integrated plan. A big part is groundwater storage. That's quantity, just making sure there's enough water. So you have this idea of mining groundwater. Have you guys heard that term? It's like mining ore, right? When you mine rocks, you take them out of the ground and you can't put them back. Groundwater is the same way. You don't think of it maybe as something that you can mine, but if you take it out too fast and no new water is going in, you can use it up. And that is happening a lot in the salt aquifers in this area. So now I'm going to turn it over to Abe, I think. He's going to talk about groundwater quality. He has a little demonstration to show you here.
Yeah, hi guys. So
it's important to have visuals too. You know, especially if you don't really understand how groundwater moves throughout the earth here. So I mean, I just put a little red dye in here. You can see that as a contamination.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little red dye in here, and groundwater. It's important. It's not underground rivers. It's not underground lakes. You know, and sometimes people think that too. But so we got some, like especially here, the Yakima River gets charged like 93% through the base flow groundwater, and that's just because of how permeable the soil is around here. It absorbs liquid really quickly, and so as you can see on the screen here, I wasn't able to bring a bunch of water because I don't have anywhere to put it. But yeah, on the screen there you can see the darker sand. That's the water moving through. So that's if you picture like up gradient. You know, you're bringing in all this water, and it's going to want to level out. And that's the water table. So the water table is where the groundwater can sit at level. So that water's moving through, trying to get there. Yeah, and so I added some contaminant as the red there, and I put that right in here if you guys can see that. And then the blue would be the Yakima River. Added that too because that shows the important part that the river plays within the groundwater, and the groundwater plays for the river. Two sides of the same coin. They're going to want to level each other out. So it's always important to be, realize that they're connected. So we're going to see that blue dye, that river, that's going to sink down to meet the groundwater table. And the red dye, that can just be any contaminant that gets spilled, especially with how permeable the soil is around here. That's going to sink in very quickly. This whole diagram over the course of like 15 minutes, so it's very, very similar material to what we have around here. Yeah, and so we can see now that in that top left, I know it's difficult to see, but that red plume, it's going to move with the groundwater. So if the groundwater is moving from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, that contamination is going to move with it. It's going to plume down into the soil and move with it towards the river, towards down gradient. So whether that's a town or the river or anything. And we can see the contamination at the bottom right. It can be pulled from a well. So that's how, unknowingly, if your water well is 20 feet, I think the salts are 100 feet deep down here. But if it's not an unconfined aquifer, if that's in the sands, if that's in the gravels around here, you're gonna pull those contaminations out in your drinking water. So it's important that we know where these spills are, we know how it's getting into the soil, so then we can protect the wells farther down. Yeah, and there's no water running through this one that I have up here. This just goes to show how it'll continue down, but then the confining aquifer down below that won't get affected as much. It will eventually seep through, like what we see in Spokane. They had a spill 50 years ago, and we're only just seeing that because it was pulled out of the salt aquifers. But around here, we're just going to be focusing on the unconfined aquifers and how that water is flowing through there.
Are there so nitrate, in terms of nitrate testing, we don't need to do that because you have lots of people that are doing it and will do it. But we do want to test for other pollutants that you have concerns about. We have a limited budget, so if you all want to be tested for everything, we'll have to figure that out. But we would like to hear if there's other pollutants that you're concerned about. Which ones are they, and why are you concerned? Are there areas in the countryside outside of Mabton that might have groundwater contamination that we should study? And if you're identifying an area, let us know why.
I live in the Outlook area, the rural Outlook area, and of course I'm surrounded by dairies. And I know my well has been tested before by different water projects, and I know my well is contaminated with nitrates. So the dairies are supplying, There you go, reverse osmosis. But of course, it's just a little spout, so I can't use it to shower or anything. It's just a little spout. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, I hope that people, if they are concerned about their water, that they make sure that they demand more. Yes, than what I got. You know.
So Outlook area, where is that?
Like 12 miles from Sunnyside, but in between Sunnyside and Granger, towards.
Has anybody else heard from the nitrate about the nitrate problem?
Or is anybody concerned about it?
Well, supposedly the city water gets tested on a regular basis. It always comes back that it's drinkable. But, I don't know who does the testing. I don't know anything about the testing. But that's another concern of mine, is that if it comes back as drinkable, but by the looks of it, it doesn't look drinkable, then either somebody's fudging the numbers or something's going on, because I ain't going to drink it. You know, my wife's not going to drink it. A lot of people here in Mabton won't drink it. Probably most of the population here in Mabton don't drink it. They all go on bottled water. You know, so yeah. It doesn't, I don't know what the deal is.
Well, as Dr. Gazas pointed out, a lot of the pollutants in wells aren't regulated. So the things that you see in the water aren't regulated, so they can report to you that the well is drinkable, because the pollutants that they test for aren't there or are low enough that they aren't a concern. But the other pollutants that aren't regulated can make the water pretty nasty. And one of them is hydrogen sulfide. That gives it that raw, rotten egg smell. And there are other pollutants like ammonia too that can get into the water that isn't regulated.
I have a question. So the city, we have been trying to get in touch with the city a bit about the water. Have people gotten in touch with the city and talked to people who are managing the water, and will they work with us?
Let me see that. You know what? I'm a straight up person. I'm going to throw somebody under the bus, and I don't care. The last administration wouldn't give anybody information on anything. Even at council meetings, when the information was asked for, it wouldn't be given to us. In January, we got a new mayor, and I became a new councilman. So that's why I'm asking questions, because they were never asked before. I don't know if it was because of intimidation or just a fear factor of not wanting to know. I don't know. But these are questions that I'm going to ask, because I'm concerned about the citizens of Mabton. Not only the older generation, like people my age, but the younger generation. The school don't even drink water. They have people donate bottled water just to get by. You know, and that's sad. It shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. I mean, that's just reality. And it's unfortunate because nobody's pushing to solve the problem. And it's time for this problem to be solved one way or another. See, that's why I don't understand. How can a farmer drink out of a well and their water tastes damn good? We can't even drink it. You know, and we're out of the wells too. So I myself, I hope there's money out there to help us at least try to do something. I really do. If there isn't, then you know what? Get a GoFundMe going or something. You know, because it shouldn't be that way.
Can I ask?
Well, he slipped in late, but we have our county commissioner, Ladon Lundy, who I know just dropped a gift over at Sunnyside not too long ago. And I'm sure that our commissioners are more than happy to get involved in helping with, talk about water infrastructure, because from what I've been told from people who've worked with Public Works here, you know, the issue can be very varied, you know, including the pipes being very old. The infrastructure is just old. So I was just wondering if Ladon could address the county commissioner's part in this.
Well, I can address some. As far as the groundwater testing, a lot of this was done as part of the groundwater management area in the lower valley. There are a lot of people involved between the county and the health district. They spent a lot of time knocking doors, sending out flyers, going door to door doing tests. Now, as far as the Mabton area, Mabton's actually outside of that groundwater management area, which is maybe why you're having this conversation about grants and all. I do know that a couple of years ago, I remember that the city water issue came to us as a county. And I know that the health district came out and tested the water, and others did, and I think they came to the same conclusion that you're talking about here, which is, I think it was due to sulfur or hydrogen sulfide in the water. So it wasn't considered a health threat per se, but it didn't change the fact that it didn't smell good and nobody wanted to drink it. It sounds like this, as you said, this has been an issue going on 30, 40 years. It's been a long-term problem. I do know that we had an opportunity through ARPA funding, federal ARPA funding a few years ago, to help with some local projects, and we did actually send or appropriate about $1 million, if I remember right, to the city of Mabton, with a specific idea of using it to drill wells. And so, actually, I just kind of looked at my schedule and thought I ought to show up at the Mabton City Council next week to kind of follow up with the city and just kind of see what's happened there, because that was the intent behind the appropriation, was to help with that particular problem. So, and I know you just said you're a new city councilman, so you may not know where that's at, but that's a question for consideration.
We do know that at least 2 wells were drilled at that particular time, and one I believe was well number 8, came back with high nitrogen, low water pressure, unusable, and the other one was low water pressure, I believe. But yeah, city council should follow up on that.
They were hoping for 200 gallons per minute. They ended up with like 50. Right. So that was a no-go. Okay. So yeah. I know right now, I think we have like 7 wells right now. 7 or 8. Out of those 8, only 2 of them are functioning. The rest of them are either tapped off or shut down for backup purposes.
Okay. I think thank you. In the next week, I think one thing I'd like to do is, and I would like to follow up with you, but I think I'm going to go back and look at our county funds and just kind of see where that appropriation is at, to figure out, okay, has it all been spent, is a portion of it been spent, and just kind of get a better feel for where that's at.
That would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
For us, it would be really nice if we could actually get samples directly from the city wells to do the analyses that we would do. So
Maybe just let me know what we got to do that. And whether you drop them off or so that
okay, we'll talk. Yeah.
Because just a comment and a question. I just looked at the county data in terms of the nitrates that were collected over the last 2 years. There's 84 Mabton residents that had their wells tested. 20% of them had nitrate over 10, but then 70% had some nitrates, which leaves, if my math is right, 10% that had no nitrates. Okay, that's just how exactly. I know you didn't get many comments from the private well owners here. But remember, nitrate is tasteless and odorless. So you could have it there and you think you have fine water. The other question is, I've heard, I'm not sure whether this is true, but I heard that the Mabton area water level is dropping at about a foot a year. That's what I heard.
Wow.
So we talk about water quantity there, but could that also affect their ability to get a good well going to provide good clean water for everybody?
I can't speak to the conversation that you were having, but to answer your first question, from the information that we got from our surveys and our focus groups, a lot of individuals do hear about nitrate, but they have a misinterpretation of what that is. They consider it to be something like bacteria that you can boil out. So what we found with a lot of the households that we had conversations with was that, depending on where they come from, what their habits are with the water, they would not drink it, but they would still use it to cook with. And we know that nitrate doesn't boil out of it, so it was just increasing the concentration. Some people thought that, their water was, I can't speak to the city water, but if they boil their water, it's safer. So that was a common misconception throughout the valley. That was really concerning. So a lot of the education that we did was don't boil your water if you're concerned about nitrates. As far as people getting sick from it, the health district, Yakima County made blue baby syndrome a reportable condition probably close to when the WAMA efforts started or shortly after. And since then, we have never had a blue baby syndrome reported, so that's good. But in our conversations, people weren't necessarily aware what the physical symptoms would be if you were going to get sick from water. So that's a really hard question to answer when people are just tired from working or they attribute it to general life things.
Right, thanks. I think I'm going to move forward. So I wanted to say a few words about groundwater quantity. So if you pump water, especially from a confined aquifer, as I said, you can just bring the water level down. And it sounds like that has been documented a bit in Mabton. Certainly it's true in the basalt aquifers in pretty much the whole lower Yakima Valley, that they've been used extensively for agriculture, and as a result, the water level is even worse out in the Columbia Basin. But there are solutions to that, so that gets to this idea of groundwater storage. One project that I really had fun working on was groundwater storage, trying to come up with a plan for putting water into the basalts where we know it's been taken out, right? We know there's space there for water, a lot, way bigger than our reservoirs. And if we can find a way to get it down in there through wells, then that's a great solution in terms of sustainable water for our agriculture. So this actually was an article in the Yakima Herald just recently. But the reality remains that this is a map of the reds are places where groundwater is being mined. The more red, the more it's being drawn down. So is how long it takes to get to 25% decline. So the lower Yakima area is definitely an area that's known to be mined for groundwater. Also, and we talked about this a little bit, if you put a well near a river, and especially if it's in the unconfined aquifer, you can draw water from the river and you can draw down the level of the river. So that's another sort of water quantity concern. And yeah, another plug for groundwater storage. So there's two ways you can put water into the ground. You can have an infiltration basin and just let it seep into the ground and it will go into that unconfined aquifer, the top aquifer, or you can put it into a well. This seems great, but this one's a little trickier because you have to worry a lot about water quality. There's a lot of regulations in terms of how the chemistry of the water you put in, the chemistry of the water you put it into, treating the water that goes in, and so on. So this tends to be more expensive, but it's also got great potential because we know that those lower aquifers have been mined. So some questions about groundwater quantity. Have you heard of any wells going dry in the area? Have you heard or seen any evidence that rivers are being impacted by pumping? What do you think about storing water underground? Does it seem like a good idea? Or do you have any concerns about that idea? And finally, are you more concerned about water quantity or water quality, and why? I think I know the answer for some of you, but anyway.
Again, because I live out in the rural outlook area near dairies, my concern, I've been living there for over 30 years. So I was there before one of the first dairies was built there. So one of the concerns that I brought up years and years and years ago when they started testing well water is what happens to the properties where the houses used to be but got torn down, and I know they were attached to wells. Whatever happened to those wells? Were they properly capped, or were they open? Because a lot of the agricultural land that's out there, it gets bought up, and most of the time it's bought up by the local dairies so that they can use it for growing the feed for their cows, and of course they fertilize it with manure, and of course they water it with urine, and you can tell because it's yellow and it stinks, right? You can tell when they do that. There's the roads when they do that, the trucks that haul the manure, they leave their little trail on the roads, right? You can see it. So anyway, so I hope that if Mabton, starts, and I really do hope you guys solve your issue with the water. They also asked about those properties where houses used to be, and if the private wells that were there, if they were properly kept. Yes.
I have an answer. The groundwater management area came up with 64 potential solutions for the water quality problem in the area. And that is exactly one of the potential causes of groundwater contamination is old abandoned wells that haven't been properly capped. So the groundwater management implementation team, one of their jobs is to find those abandoned wells. So if you have a way of no problem. If you have a way of contacting the Guam implementation team, if you know of abandoned wells, they would appreciate it.
Anybody else wants to answer? Have you heard any other problems of the wells going dry?
I'm afraid there's probably no answer to this, but in the Lower Yakima Valley, do we have any idea which categories of agriculture or domestic activities is doing the most mining of those aquifers that are falling?
I think, which categories of agriculture?
Yeah. I mean, orchardists, crop agriculture.
I think somebody knows, but I don't. It is agriculture, though. I mean, the deep wells are agricultural. Yeah.
So, yo estoy de acuerdo totalmente con lo que estaba diciendo la señora acerca de las lecherías, porque yo pienso que los que realmente saben lo que está pasando son los trabajadores que están adentro de las lecherías. Yo personalmente conozco personas que trabajan en la lechería y me hablan de todo lo malo que están haciendo y cómo se está yendo al agua y cómo está contaminando.
I agree with what has been said right here, and I have heard from the workers in these stables, in these people were places with cows, and the people working there, they tell me the terrible conditions and how it's affecting the place.
So, realmente los que saben que si está pasando algo malo son los que están haciendo el trabajo adentro de las lecherías porque saben todo lo que se está contaminando.
And they know firsthand, because they see it, the contamination that happens. They are witness.
Pero obviamente es su trabajo y ellos no lo hablan porque piensan que no les concierne ese problema, pero realmente sí, porque nos afecta a todos.
But obviously, because it's their job, they don't speak out. It's a conflict of interest, basically, that's what you're saying, but it affects the rest of us.
So es una opinión.
That's my opinion.
All right. Any other comments on this? All right, I'm going to move then. Oh, yeah. So I'll tell you what things we can do. So kind of our toolkit in terms of being able to study your groundwater. So one thing that we commonly do is measure the water levels in the well. Typically I put a little pressure transducer in the well and I can see when the water level goes up or down. Over the course of this particular study, we'd only see a seasonal variation, right? We wouldn't get to see the long-term whether it's going up or down. But if you leave things in there for a long time, you can see if you're mining the groundwater. The other thing that I really like to do to understand the aquifers is just a general water chemistry. So that's just looking at the chemistry of the water that it's got from interacting with the rocks, and it allows us to tell, you know, where are the different aquifers and where are there barriers to flow in the subsurface where water's not getting from one place to another. So your question about are we in the same aquifer as them and we're drinking the same water and yet ours is bad and theirs isn't? It would help us get at that question. And also you can, with the chemistry, you can really tell which waters have interacted with the surface, or especially the Yakima River. You can really see Yakima River water in the subsurface by just looking at the general chemistry. Pollutants. This is a big question. Where is it polluted? Where is the groundwater polluted and how bad is it? So just trying to identify where the hot spots are of pollution, I think that's really important. Yeah. And then sometimes, if we're lucky, we can use trace chemicals to trace a pollution source. So it's one thing to know, okay, there's a hot spot right here, and it's another thing to know where that came from. I think in the case of nitrate, I mean, we would all agree that there's a lot of sources of nitrate out there. But something like maybe a veterinary pharmaceutical might be used to tell if that's associated with nitrate, maybe that would mean that it's from some kind of animal operation. And then the other thing that we can do is we can use isotopes or other tracers to determine groundwater age, and that helps us understand which waters have been in the subsurface longer. Maybe they're more vulnerable to groundwater mining, and also, where we can store water. And combined, these things also can help us understand which way the water is flowing. And so if there's a pollution problem, you can tell which direction it's moving. So that's kind of our toolkit. So my final questions. So I think we'll do the talking questions, and then we have some posters where you can categorize you can mark your priorities. So the first set of questions, like, how do you think we can help you? How do you think scientific research can help for groundwater management? I mean, I do have some ideas myself, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about that. If you want your well tested for contaminants, for sure let us know. Abe made some really beautiful little pamphlets that are back there. I don't know if anybody got one. Someone lift one of those up. Importantly, oh yeah, there's some. Importantly, they have our contact info. They have Abe's contact information there. So if you want a well tested, let us know now. If you know someone who might want a well tested, let Abe know. And we're not just talking nitrate in this case. We'll probably do a suite of potential pollutants that might be in the water, like pesticides and things like that.
What's the cost on that?
What?
What's the cost on that?
Well, we haven't. It really depends on what we measure. There's a suite of things that we can measure. Each one has a different price. Some of them are pretty, like if you did a whole pesticides, there's kind of standard pesticide suite. I think it's $700 for analysis. So we don't have enough money to do that for every well. So I think we're going to have to design something where we take wells that are high risk and prioritize those for things that we want to analyze, or analyze for certain things that might indicate other things, and then do the full analysis. Anyway, we're going to have to be strategic about what we analyze. And so yeah, what do you guys think about? What do you think about us and how we can help you?
I have a question for you. If you were having problems with water, what would you want to be tested?
The problems that you described. I guess I would look to see what the city regularly tests and make sure and see what the results have been. And then I would think to test for things that they don't normally test that might also be there, just in terms of the city water. If I were a rural well, I'd probably want some kind of pesticide or possibly pharmaceuticals.
Well water I don't know nothing about. City water is the one I'm really worried about. So you're the expert here. What would you test for?
I guess I would look and see what the city has tested for, and I would try to test for things they hadn't tested for. I would definitely look into the sulfur and see what's going on with the sulfur. And I would also, someone said something about being different in different places. So that's why I would want to get each well. Like, look at each well, look at what the chemistry is in each well, see what places, if some places aren't having problems and others are. And then the distribution system is definitely still on the table, right? So you might want to try to do things that test the distribution system, like looking in different places within the distribution system. Yeah, I do have an idea for the city.
Yeah.
For trying to help understand the problem, yeah.
I'd like to hear that from you.
Yeah. Because my understanding right now is that, I don't know if it's still being done, but I know that in the past, I think there was 10 or 15 locations throughout the town that they would go in and they'd grab samples of the water. And then they would send them off to get them tested. But this was, I don't know if they did it the past 4 years. I don't know if they're still doing it now. But that's something that I'm going to look into.
Yeah.
Because I know that they've taken samples out of the same faucet a couple of times. Instead of going to the different places, they cut corners and did it out of the same faucets. Did it out of the same faucet for the city, did it out of the same faucet at the school district. And there was another place where they got 2 samples out of the same faucet, right back to back. Which is telling me that ain't gonna do us any good as far as the test goes. Because I don't think that it would be beneficial that way. So I would like to test all the wells that are in production right now. But if there's a cost, I would like to know what that cost would be. And if we're gonna test the wells, what are we testing for? Nitrates, whatever. Another thing is, since you guys know about wells and stuff like that, how do you guys, because right now, the city of Mabton was talking about getting a filtration system, kind of like a reverse osmosis system, but it was gonna be pretty expensive. I mean, it was gonna be pretty expensive. We're talking millions. The city can't afford that. So they were looking for grants to at least split the cost or something. But then they're gonna be in debt for the next, who knows, 20, 30 years, just to pay that off. So I know there's a couple other ways of going upon it. I don't know if you've ever heard about this, but one of them is ice pigging. That's to rehab the wells. Start at the wells. Start at the screens. And then another one is liquid nitrogen, which I don't know what the benefits of that one is, but I know that those are two options that you can do and hope that it changes the color, the smell, and whatever else it does, because the filter system it's not affordable. And in order to get that done, we're gonna have to dig another well. And combine that well with the filter system, with the filtration system, which is even more money now. So, I don't know how much you know, like I said, about ice pigging or liquid nitrogen, but do you think that would be a start to try to figure this thing out?
I don't think I know enough about ice picking or liquid nitrogen to answer that question. I will research it.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Because I know that it's not gonna get solved in a matter of weeks or months. I know it's gonna be hopefully not long term, like 10, 20 years. Hopefully within the next couple of years, we can resolve this, hopefully. If everything falls into place. And the first thing that needs to fall into place is finance.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm asking what the cost is of some of this stuff, so that we can look into to see if it's gonna be affordable. But whether it's affordable or not, it's gotta get done, so we'll find a way.
So we have a grant, right? So Friends of Toppenish Creek has a grant, and we were a subcontract on that. And there are funds in that for analyses. I think what I will do or Abe will do after this meeting, is kind of make a spreadsheet with prices of the different things that we can measure, and we'll kind of think about what would make sense, and then we'll be in touch.
Okay. Yeah, that way I can bring it up to the other council members and see what we come up with. See what we decide as a group.
Are there any other questions or comments for us?
Maybe those with private wells, do you want to say something, concerns, or how scientific research might help understanding your well water?
We gotta speak up, man. Somebody's gotta talk.
Yeah.
My sense is that the private well people are pretty happy compared to the city well people.
Okay. I'm Sandra Lindy, and a couple of years ago, they came and tested our well water, and it was good, and I appreciate that that is something that you can ask to have done. I think it's a good thing to do. Thank you.
Okay, so I know I don't live in Mabton, but the reason I came is because I do encourage the residents of Mabton, especially those with private wells, please get your wells tested. Like I said, I've been suffering with nitrates in my well for years, and like I said, all they gave me was a little spigot, and that's it. And I really hope. And the thing about nitrates, I wash my if you're not careful, you end up washing your dishes with it. You end up washing your fruits and vegetables with it, and it still gets into your system, right? You shower in it, and it gets into your system. So, yeah, my plant, like if you have farm animals like a goat or a cow, and they're drinking that water, guess what? It's not healthy meat, right? So it does affect you. So please don't be afraid to get your well tested. I know in my area there were over 300 wells that they were predicting needed to be tested. Not everybody got theirs tested, and I understand why. Like La Señora that said earlier, about some of the workers. Well, some of those workers live with those type of wells, and they're afraid. They're afraid to get their well tested, right? And then, yeah. So please get your wells tested. Thank you. Again, this is just from information from our focus groups and surveys. So private well users, if anything resonates, please let us know. A big issue for people was sort of the fact that private wells are not regulated, so there's nobody really hounding people to, it's time to get your well tested, your schedule's coming up, we should do it every like once a year or something, but that's not necessarily something that's on people's top priority to do, especially if there's no like visual or smell concerns with their water. Another thing was knowing where to go get your water tested. Not for everybody, but a small portion of people. It was the cost of getting their well tested. And we thought initially it would be a bigger concern, but we didn't really find that in our study. But it was mentioned in the focus groups that sometimes they're not the owners of the residence of the well. So it's not my well. It's on my property because I live there, but it's not the property that I own, so it's at my responsibility. So a little bit of that. And I had one more thing. Sorry, totally blanked. I don't remember. Sorry.
The reason this is a big concern of mine is because right now it's already been approved that there's going to be projects going on here in town. There's four different places where they're going to put up residential homes. Mm-hmm. We're looking at about 90 to 100 new homes here. Mm-hmm. There's another area where they're going to put up apartments. How many? I'm not sure what fits on that piece of land. I think it's like a 5-acre piece of land, 5 or 6 acres. That's my big concern. Why are you willing to invest money into something that people aren't going to be happy with? Because of the water quality. And in order for this town to grow, which I don't have a problem with it growing, I would really like to get this water issue solved. Because without water, this town will never grow again. And that's my main concern. And that's why I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff can get done within the next, 2 to 4 years, if possible. If it's not, well, at least we're trying.
Well, our project is 1 year long, and APES finishes his thesis in a year and a half. So we'll do our part.
Whatever we can get.
We'll do some research. Yeah. All right. I think the final thing, we'll be here for a while. So I if you'd like to talk to us individually, please do. And Adriana is there. She speaks Spanish and she knows about groundwater, so she's there as well. We do have a sort of a feedback thing that we want you guys all to do. On your tables, there are these. You can write on. Okay, you can write on these if there's something you want to tell us or a question you have or whatever. Feel free. But there's these cool little stickers. So you're each going to take your 3 stickers and you're going to go up to one of the 2 posters. One is in English. The other one, which is on its way over here, is in Spanish. And you're going to put your 3 stickers on. There's, I think 1, 2, 3, 8 things listed.
And so the pink sticker is your number one priority, orange is your next priority, green is your next. Which one of these things are highest priority for you? And you can read them. Impact of groundwater on the Yakima River, drinking water quality, contamination from dairies and feeding lots, pollution of farms, pollution by industry, maintaining water levels in wells, city water supply, or other. And if it's other, you can write in there or let us know on a card or something. So can everyone please do that so we get that kind of group feedback?
Can you repeat that? Red is number one?
Yes, pink is first priority.
Pink, okay.
Orange is second, and green is third. I think it says on there as well. All right. You can do that at your leisure. And I think there's plenty of food as well. Thank you very much. And we'll be here.
Thank you.